Hello everyone and welcome to another show, Empower World, the Coaching and Leadership Podcast. And today I'm here, Marie Quigley, with my business partner, Janine Bailey. How are you doing today, Janine?
I'm doing very, very well. Thank you, Marie.
Yeah. The weather's starting to cool down in Qatar now, so it's coming to winter time. So around 30 degrees is our pleasant winter at the moment, which is nice, isn't it?
Yes, it's almost time to put on the woolly hat.
It sure is. I'm getting my boots out of the cupboard as we speak.
Yes.
And anyone who knows me knows that I am not joking.
Yes, exactly. So it's great to be here.
It is. And we've had a busy few weeks, haven't we?
We have, yes. We've been very fortunate. We've been working with Aramax on an online coach training program, which is very exciting because that's new for us and it's opening up new doors. So that's wonderful.
Great. And lots of other little projects coming up in the pipeline. So we're very excited and very busy and productive and enjoying every moment of it. So I think we should get on with what we're here to do and introduce our next guest.
Yes. So we are incredibly excited because we've got a really inspiring guest today, Siimon Reynolds, who I will ask him to introduce himself to you shortly. But I was aware of Siimon's presence. This is maybe giving away my age a bit.
Don't do that. Don't do that. Keep them guessing.
Quite a while ago, in my 20s, and of course, I'm only in my 30s now. Quite a while ago, when I was working back in Melbourne, and I became aware of Siimon's presence through some wonderful things that he was able to do. He really stepped out of his comfort zone. He really trusted himself and backed himself, and really made a splash in the scene. The marketing scene in Melbourne, beyond Australia, and beyond in the US. And I know Siimon will provide us with some background about that. So, and having tuned into some of Siimon's things that he's doing, I know that he definitely supports people like ourselves, coaches, entrepreneurs, business owners, to really get their business up and running. So we believe that Siimon's really going to add some value today in terms of supporting people who really want to be in charge of their destiny. So Siimon, thank you for joining us today. We'd love to hear more about what your background is all about.
Well, first of all, I want to say it's an absolute delight to be on the podcast. Obviously I know of you guys and what you're achieving over there, and it's quite remarkable. A little about me: I've been in business I've owned my own businesses for 27 years. So I never went to university. I entered originally into advertising. Most of my career has been advertising, and that's a meritocracy, for better or worse. It's really, particularly as a copywriter, which I was, you go in there and you've got to scrape it out with everybody else to try and get to the top, and no academic qualifications matter. It's really just whether you can write ads. And so I've had three levels of career. The first is as a creative person, as a writer in advertising. The second is as an owner of companies for the last 27 years, where I've really been in a position where if I don't get clients, I don't eat. So that's vastly different from the typical person that works in a corporation. And then thirdly, over the last 5 or 6 years or so, I stepped out of advertising and got into the world of coaching. And I did that largely because my wife wanted to move back to America, and I'd never lived overseas. And I thought, what can I do working at home? And that's how it all started. And since then, I've coached many people around the world, several billionaires, several centimillionaires, and certainly some prominent leaders as well. In Australia, I coach through the Fortune Institute, and the rest of the world I coach via myself, SiimonReynolds.com. And that's me in a nutshell.
Fabulous. Lovely to meet you. So Janine knows you well. I'm really just discovering who you are today, Siimon, and I am already curious to know more.
Oh, that's good. At least I haven't sent you to sleep so far.
No, and I feel I have a connection with you. I started off life in advertising myself as an art director on the opposite side of the copywriting table. So,
whereabouts?
In London.
Yeah, where?
Well, I started off with Bartle, Bogle and Hegarty.
One of the best agencies in the world. You must be very good. That's
I wasn't at the time, and probably it wasn't in my heart and soul. And so I moved. I quickly realized that I did want to help people get their messages out, but not through advertising, through this type of work. So yeah.
Yes, it's hard to change the world when you're selling a can of beans.
It certainly is. And it really didn't resonate even as a young person, that there was just something missing, and I knew that I had to move on. That was wonderful to experience that.
Well, it's beautiful that you had the guts to do that, because, you know, so many people will be in a profession for 20 years saying that they want to move on and do something more meaningful, but never doing it. So all kudos to you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, it's great to be surrounded by two people who followed their passion, who had the courage to move out of the comfort zone and not accept other people's expectations of yourself, to not keep you in this box. You've both moved out of what's been perhaps expected of you, maybe not. I'm making assumptions here. And certainly for me, I've done that as well, but I did do it at a much later stage. So, and I'm so pleased that I did. So it's great to be surrounded by you both. Go ahead.
What I was interested in when I saw your profile, Siimon, is this creativity. And I believe that creativity exists within all of us, within whatever we're doing. It's a skill that we can develop. And so many people that we work with in leadership believe that maybe they're not creative. And I absolutely disagree with that. What's your thoughts about that?
Well, I entirely concur with you, and certainly the research backs you up. If you look at the pioneering work of Edward de Bono in the 70s and 80s, he, in my view, categorically showed that creativity is just a method of thinking, and the brain is following certain steps, and anybody can learn those steps. And I completely agree with that. It's the self-perception that someone is not creative that stops them being creative.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Siimon, your inspiration to move out of that comfort zone, to create what it is that you wanted to create, where did that come from?
Well, you know, for better or worse, I've always thought that I could do various things. And so when I'm doing one thing, I'm often saying, well, I should be also doing the other. And it's very difficult to be a polymath. It's very difficult to be excellent at many things. And so it really forces you to say goodbye to one thing and then do the other. It's a difficult thing to do emotionally, to move to a different industry. And, you know, I'm sure you have many people on this podcast who are considering, for instance, becoming coaches, and they're wondering whether they can make the switch. It's clearly difficult emotionally, but it's also difficult practically in two clear ways: earning an income. How do I generate an income, particularly at the early stages? And second of all, how do I learn the craft of a new profession? Let's say, as an example, coaching. You know, when I switched 5 years ago to becoming a coach, of course, naturally, I felt I could give people advice. But as you and I know, the craft of coaching, the expertise of coaching, saying the right thing at the right time in a way that encourages action, is really a deep science and a deep art. And so we're faced with the difficulties of threefold: of emotionally wanting to start something new, of trying to earn the money that allows us to do something new, and then thirdly, to try and master the entire craft of the subject. And so it's completely understandable why so few people have the courage to do a second thing in their life, for those three reasons.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love the story that you told, which is not your transition from the great success that you had, which of course would have been quite challenging because you had this great success, to move from where you were 5 years ago to move into coaching. So I guess it would have been very comfortable to continue down that line. But I love the story that you told of when you were, I think, was it 21 or 23? can't quite remember, where you moved out of your initial job into the creative director role, if I recall correctly. So what was because, you know, we're dealing with coaches who are struggling with moving from that mindset of what they know into something new. So I'm just curious about the mindset that you had at that young age to take the courage to step into that creative director role, to go for it, to go beyond what many people would have thought was possible. So just curious what was going on there.
Well, at that age, I very much had a daring mindset. So I was always trying to think big. I was always trying to dare. I was always trying to push the boundaries. And, you know, in a way that perhaps you only do at 21 when you haven't been hit with 4 billion failures and had the daring knocked out of you somewhat. But at those days, you know, I thought I was bulletproof and I had nothing to lose to do it. What was interesting when I did it, though, was how ill-equipped I was to do it in the first 6 months. You know, there were so many things I didn't understand about the role I was going into, to be creative director of an ad agency at 21, which is probably 15 to 20 years earlier than someone does that. And so I didn't understand many aspects of advertising. I didn't understand many aspects of politics. I didn't understand virtually any aspects of leadership. And the reason I want to mention that is when someone, for instance, goes into coaching, they may feel that there's something wrong with them because they don't understand most of the elements of the coaching world or the business of coaching. And it's very, very normal. And it's also very, very positive, although it doesn't feel like it. Yes, you're in there. You feel like you're sinking. You feel like you don't know what you're doing. But when the dust settles, you will view that as one of the greatest periods of growth that you've ever had. And it really takes that kind of high stress environment to move you to another level. And, you know, I really believe that the state of confusion is prior to breakthrough. It is very rarely achieved that one is in a state of equilibrium and then moves to a quantum leap into a higher level of being. And so I think it's very important that we remember that state of internal chaos and confusion has the potential to be a precursor to an extraordinary new level of living. Whereas most people, when they enter that state of confusion, for example, when they choose to start a new career, they view that as something wrong, and it isn't.
Absolutely. Our emotions are there to highlight something needs to change, and actually, unless it gets really bad and the pain causes us so much trouble, we stay in that comfort zone, and it takes that extra little nudge to propel us forward.
100%, yeah, and one could argue at a metaphysical level as well. It's only when we're higher levels of self scrambling around for new answers that we're likely to get new answers coming to us. You know, it's the desperate person or the person with unbelievable desire that tends to discover something new and better.
Yes, yeah. And thank you for sharing that, because we do want to support our listeners to know that, you know, when you are at that point, it is absolutely normal. And it's something that we don't have to succumb to. It's something that we can learn and grow and expand from. You know, if we listen to those emotions and don't let them cloud our judgment about where we're going and what we want to do. And we do share that with all of our participants at Coach Training, that confusion is what is needed before that, as you say, that next enlightenment phase. And certainly when I was back in Melbourne over the summertime here, wintertime in Melbourne, when I went along to your seminar. That was certainly something that I was, that we're both experiencing in our business. We are, we've sort of hit this kind of wall, but it's a great wall because our business has grown and expanded so much, but we can't keep doing what we've done in the past. And because we are at the moment, well, we've made some decisions to change that, but it was creating some pain for us. So it just meant for us, we knew we have to do something different. We have to look at this and look at how we can overcome those things that potentially could, if we listen to them, put us into this smaller place.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. And look, the thing is, there's two great things Brian Tracy, the achievement expert, said that I think of often. First of all business skills are learnable. So let's say someone's going into a coaching business and they don't know what to do and they feel like they're drowning. The reality is this isn't some it isn't physics, it isn't a rocket science. Any field, and coaching is one of them, has a whole series of things that can be learnt. And so anybody can learn it. Doesn't matter if you're below level intelligence or above level of intelligence, you learn these 40 things about the business of coaching and you're going to be a successful coach. Simple as that. And the second thing that, Brian Tracy says that I think is really valid is he said that anybody can get into the top 10% of a field. You may not necessarily become the number one person in the world, but it should be our aim to not only have, for instance, a career in coaching. Our aim should be to be in the top 10% of coaches in the world. And that's very, very possible because so many people are ordinary. So many people don't try. And so many people don't have a standard of continual learning. And by simply having high standards and continually learning, eventually, it may take 5 years, it may take 10 years, you're going to end up in the top 10% of your field. And for me, when I started a new field, those two points, all business skills are learnable and that anybody can get in the top 10% of a field, and I think that is largely true of almost any profession, have been very, very heartening. And I think it's very important that we don't just, if someone enters the coaching field, they don't just attempt to survive, which is very natural, but they must aim to thrive in the field. So it's not that, I'd like to earn a living as a coach. That is a dangerous way to think because it's a very low aim. But if we aim to be in the top 10% of the field, if we aim to really thrive in this profession, then we're going to get a whole different series of answers and we're going to end up in a totally different place.
Yeah, love what you're saying. And what's coming to mind as you're sharing this, Siimon, is one of our coaches who's been through our coach training and they know they want to get on this journey. Yet they're resisting because of these heavy things that weighing on their shoulders, their responsibilities, their relationship, their need for finance. There's lots of things going on. Even though they know this is their passion and they're meant to be doing this, they still are unable to make that shift. What advice would you give them?
Well, yeah, it's a very interesting area, which I've thought a lot in my own life over the decades. In my view, the biggest danger in starting a new career is to have one foot back in the old career. And it doesn't mean that for financial reasons, you can't continue to be doing the old career as you step into it. I'm talking about a subtle distinction, and that is that emotionally you are fully and utterly committed to becoming a coach, for example, or entering a new career. So that you do this work perfunctorily, you do it as a way of earning income, the previous work, but you fully commit. If you're going to be in there, you must be in there fully, because the great danger is that suddenly it's 2 years later and you're still part-time in it. You're still ordinary in it, and you still haven't mastered the basics of earning a living in it, or even doing it as a craft. And I have seen in my life the times when I've been weakest in my performance is when I've been in two minds. And so eventually I had to create a system for getting over that. And it is simply this, that you choose, and this is what I advocate when I'm coaching people regarding this, that you choose a date, let's say 1 year in advance or 9 months in advance, and you put that date in your diary and you say, until that date, I am not even going to consider not doing this. And on that date, I give myself a full permission to do a complete review of it and abandon it if need be without any guilt. But until that time, I am going 1000%. And then when I see that page in my diary, it's permission to do anything, including leaving it.
What a great tip.
Yeah.
That's a great tip.
Because otherwise, here's what happened in my life is I used to say, oh, I think I'll go and do that for a career. 2 years later, I still hadn't done it. And if I looked at my performance, it was really ordinary in the first career, in what I've been doing. So I got just mediocrity as a result of not being fully committed. So either way it's fine to be committed to either way. But if we're going to do a new thing, as Steve Hardison, one of the best coaches in America, said, if you're not committed, the ship is sinking. It's only a matter of time. And I totally agree with that.
Yes, yeah. Well, I can totally relate to what you're saying, Simon. I remember when I embarked on the coaching journey, and I knew that I wanted to be a coach, and I was still working for a communications consultancy here in Qatar, and I was hanging on to the security of that job. And it was actually when I was being coached on my values that all of a sudden I realized it was just such an instantaneous, all I have to do is focus and do what it is that I know is true to me, and everything else will follow. The security that I was looking for through my old job will come anyway if I just focus and, as you say, aim to be the best that I can be in my chosen profession. And it was I mean, at the time I was actually ill. I was flat out in bed ill, but I remember listening to this CD about values, and it resonated with me, and I just went, yes. I jumped out of bed for joy because I just knew that this was the path.
Yeah.
And I haven't.
Wonderful.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
I'm so glad you haven't looked back. I'm so glad you took that advice. I know my dad has always said to us as children growing up, must is a great master. And sometimes if you must do something from your heart, if you know that this is a real part of you and you must do it, then you follow it through and you will master it and you will achieve what you want. You will, because you do focus.
Yeah, so true, so true. Well, you know, I'm glad you're talking about this, because there must be a lot of people who are either haven't made the decision yet or have made the decision and wondering whether it was the right thing. And I think it's important that they remember that that's totally normal to do that, to have those doubts, but they can't become subservient to those doubts.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
So as we wrap up the call, Simon, and you could share some last snippet of information to all the coaches in this region and beyond.
And the leaders.
What would you share?
Well, I think several things. The first is, for those people who are senior in coaching, I would say that there are two stages to being the greatest coach in the world. The first is complete mastery of the knowledge that already exists in the domain. So their first mission is to fully study all the best coaches in the world, to work with people like Empower World in order to have a deep understanding of craft. You know, there's that old analogy that the Eskimos have many words for snow because they're experts at it. And I decided to look that up only about 10 days ago. They have, depending on the tribe, over 53 different words for snow. So they have such expertise in that domain. And we must achieve the same thing if you want to be a truly great coach. Step one. So That's the first aim. The second aim for the very senior coaches is the people who are at the top of the industry, after having learned everything in the domain, then add to the sector with new knowledge, with new distinctions, with new ways of doing things. So that's a message for the senior coaches. For the junior coaches, I would say this. Other than what I've said already about the importance of learning and being the top 10%, that the most important thing is that you see yourself all day long as a great coach. Because until you shift the self-perception that from I am trying to be a great coach to I am a great coach, then you're always going to be kept at a certain level. So now that's a mental game, it's a metaphysical game, but you've got to really be it now. Be it now. And your clients will feel it, everyone around you will feel it, and your whole set of paradigms will change for the better.
Lovely. If you can imagine it, you can create it.
100%. Yeah. As long as we align belief with it.
Yeah.
Which is what I'm guessing is what happened when you were that 21-year-old, 23-year-old, whatever age it was, that creative director. You were able to step into that that role, and it came to you. You were given that role of that.
Yeah.
That
I fully believed it.
Yeah.
Even though I had a lot of fear. I remember the first week I put up a giant poster in my office, which was a quote from Osho, and it said, "Be realistic, expect a miracle."
What a great way to end this podcast, Siimon. I love it. Now, I know that our coaches, our leaders, our listeners throughout the region will want to find out more about you. How can they do that?
Well, for those outside Australia, SiimonReynolds.com. That's 2 I's in Siimon, SIIMON, Reynolds.com. And for those in Australia, thefortuneinstitute.com.
Lovely. Fantastic. Thank you, Siimon. We really appreciate your generosity of time and insight. So thank you so much. We really appreciate you being on board.
Great pleasure to talk with you, Siimon.
Yeah, really enjoyed it, guys, and keep doing the great work.
Thank you so much. And you too.
Enjoy your day.
You too. Bye-bye.